Welcome to Movie Slice. Quick fun recaps of your favorite movies. Sharp, funny, and to the point. Hit subscribe and get your perfect slice of cinema. The movie Hidden begins with a husband and wife notice their neighbors frantically packing up and rushing out of their homes. Confused, they stepped outside only to see everyone on the street running as if the end of the world had arrived. Jason still did not know what was happening, but as a precaution, he decided to take his family and leave the town. But on the way, they saw something strange. The same neighbors who had fled were now returning. Things became even more unsettling. Jason's family grew anxious, and before long they were stuck in traffic. That is when they realized the only road out of the city had been blocked by the military. Helicopters hovered overhead, announcing that a sudden infection had spread in the city, and all residents were ordered to immediately return to their homes. Jason then understood that they had been completely isolated. Suddenly, a rock-like object crashed from the sky, throwing up a cloud of dust. Moments later, two fighter jets thundered past, heading straight toward the town. Everyone watched in shock as bombs began raining down. Beth, Jason's wife, immediately realized the truth. If they had obeyed orders and gone back home, their fate would have been sealed. The jets now turned toward the fleeing people on the roads. That is when everyone finally understood. The military was not trying to save them. They were trying to kill them. Beth spotted a school on the hill and quickly urged her family to climb. The jets began their second round of bombing, but fortunately they managed to escape the blast waves in time. Stumbling and exhausted, they reached the school and banged desperately on the bunker door. As the booming roar of the planes drew nearer, the heavy door finally sealed shut. What kind of virus could have forced the army to take such drastic action? Jason's family could not understand, but for now they had found shelter. Inside the bunker, there was expired canned food, enough to last 3 people for quite some time. But Beth's face was pale. While closing the door, her palm had been cut. What if she had already been infected? Still, this was not the time to dwell on it. Jason chained the bunker door tightly with iron links and decided they would hide there for a while. Life underground, however, was not easy. Every day was the same. Stale canned food and muddy water from an old underground well. To pass the time, they played cards and hide and seek. Cut off from the world, the family felt as though they were living at the end of time itself. Their daughter was the first to grow restless. "Papa, how long will we stay here?" she asked. Jason had no real answer. All he could say was, "When the virus is gone and life blooms again, only then will we go outside." They never imagined this wait would stretch into 300 days. The little girl often peeked outside through a reflector mirror attached to the ventilation duct, but every time she only saw a world scorched to ashes, lifeless and bleak. Slowly, she began to feel that maybe they really were the last people alive. Beth comforted her, whispering that perhaps her friends were also hiding somewhere just like them. One day, the girl opened a tin can only to find it empty with a tiny hole in the back. Something had stolen the food. Beth checked the remaining stock and discovered 12 cans had been emptied. 2 weeks' worth of supplies were gone. Heartbroken, she suspected rats had sneaked in through the ventilation duct. Seeing his daughter's sad face, Jason reassured her, "Do not worry about small things. If food runs out, I will go above and find more." That night, while the girl was playing with her mother, a faint noise came from behind. A rat had once again crawled in, trying to steal another tin. Furious, Jason pulled out a knife, ready to kill it, but the creature was unusually fast and darted toward the hole. Just as it was about to escape, Beth lunged forward and caught it, but before they could celebrate, a sharp burning smell filled the bunker. The rat had knocked over an oil lamp. The temperature rose quickly and suddenly the lamp exploded, spilling kerosene everywhere. Flames spread fast. Beth ripped down a curtain to smother the fire while Jason hauled water from a stone tap to douse the flames. After a desperate struggle, they finally put it out. When they turned to find their daughter, she was hiding under the bed, staring at the mirror. Smoke was pouring out through the ventilation duct, threatening to reveal their location. Jason whispered that maybe the darkness of night would hide the smoke. The 3 of them stayed awake in terror. Luckily, nothing happened that night. The next morning, Jason checked the mirror and saw it was blackened with soot. The smoke had escaped, but now a thick layer of ash clung around the duct, which might help conceal them. Still, they decided to clean it. Jason and Beth unchained the door, listened carefully for danger, and finally stepped outside, leaving their daughter alone inside. Time passed, but they did not return. Anxious, the girl climbed onto a stool and peered outside with the reflector mirror. She saw her parents trying to camouflage the bunker's door, but then in the distance, A black shadow slithered across the forest. Terrified, she shouted for her father to look behind him, but they were too far away to hear. Panic overcame her and she rushed outside. But once there, her parents were nowhere to be seen. Trembling, she cried out for them. Suddenly, two hands grabbed her. It was Jason and Beth. They hurried back to the bunker. Jason secured the door with wooden planks and chained it tight again. Then he motioned for silence, pressing his ear to the ground above. Footsteps could be heard. Heavy, deliberate searching. Something knew they were down there. The little girl broke into sobs. Beth tried desperately to calm her, whispering that any noise would mean the end. Jason distracted her until she quieted, but Beth's eyes stayed fixed on the ventilation duct, her anxiety mounting. Suddenly, a loud crash shook the bunker. The footsteps grew heavier until they stopped right above their shelter. Jason's forehead dripped with sweat. The thing they feared had arrived. Something pushed hard against the iron door, chains rattling violently. It was clear the intruder knew someone was inside. Each slam cracked the supporting beams. The door would not hold much longer. Summoning her courage, Beth climbed up the ladder, using her body weight to keep the door closed. But slowly the lid still began to open, and two glowing green eyes peered inside. At that exact moment, Jason broke off a steel pipe and jammed it into the frame, forcing the door shut. The pressure above suddenly vanished, and the couple secured the bunker again. Though the footsteps eventually faded away, Jason's hands shook uncontrollably. Now he knew the outside world was not just filled with ruthless soldiers, but terrifying monsters as well. The family huddled near the stairs, hopeless and exhausted. Their hiding place was exposed. More attacks could come any moment, and indeed, soon enough, the storage room shelves began to rattle, followed by the sound of countless footsteps above. Like a swarm, they gathered and launched a massive assault. This time, the iron door gave way. Countless glowing eyes stared into the dark bunker. Jason's family stumbled back in fear, but the monsters kept advancing. Jason hurled the oil lamp and shoved a cabinet against the door, but it would not hold long. That is when their daughters spotted a ducted opening in the ground. Jason smashed it open, forcing his wife and child through. But when he tried to follow, the narrow passage trapped him. The monsters were seconds away. In desperation, Jason dislocated his own arm and wriggled free. Beth pulled with all her strength, nearly getting him out when a massive clawed foot burst through the flames and seized him. Jason shouted for Beth to protect their daughter before being dragged back into the bunker. Beth and her daughter sprinted through the tunnels, hearing Jason's struggle echo behind them. She knew he was buying them time with his life. They burst into the open only to find their path blocked by a massive wall. A helicopter's spotlight swept over them, trapping them in its glare. A giant net dropped from above, ensnaring them both. Through the mesh, Beth saw black figures with glowing green eyes closing in. But as they drew closer, she realized these were not monsters. They were soldiers in hazmat suits. The soldiers pulled out syringes and jabbed them in the necks. Black blood trickled out. Declaring them infected, the commander ordered his men to execute both mother and child. When the virus first spread, many townsfolk had already been exposed. It was airborne, highly contagious, and invisible. The army's only method of containment was merciless extermination. Beth watched in horror as the soldiers raised their weapons toward her daughter. Rage consumed her, and black veins began crawling across her face. But before she could act, a spray of blood erupted from a soldier's neck. It was Jason. He had returned from the dead, his eyes glowing red, his strength multiplied. He had transformed after infection. Though he fought fiercely, he could not withstand the hail of bullets for long. He collapsed, gasping on the ground. But his sacrifice was not in vain. Amid the chaos, Beth and her daughter managed to escape the net. Soldiers scattered to find them. Unaware that Beth herself had begun to transform, she slaughtered several of them, but was eventually struck down and fell onto a car roof. Her daughter, hidden in the shadows, saw everything. Overwhelmed by fury, the girl too began to transform, leaping at a soldier with deadly intent. But before she could kill, Beth stopped her. She refused to let her daughter become a monster. Slowly the girl calmed, her veins returning to normal. But the soldier she had attacked was already doomed. His suit torn, he too succumbed to the virus. Jason, gravely wounded, looked at his daughter one last time, saying goodbye in his familiar way before closing his eyes forever. Just then, another helicopter arrived. Beth grabbed her daughter and ran. They hid among piles of junk until they found a secret underground passage. A sudden light revealed a small boy, their old neighbor, who led them to a hidden cellar where many familiar survivors were hiding. Countless people had been forced to live like rats in the dark just to survive. Jason's family had spent every day running from monsters. Yet in truth, in the eyes of the uninfected world, they themselves had become the monsters. And if you paid close attention, you would realize they always knew they were infected. That is why they kept warning their daughter never to lose her temper, because anger brought out the transformation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, make sure to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.